Greetings, this is Kal Kat, the Kal Katster, and this is a review, spoilery review of The Mandalorian Season 2. I binge watched all of Season 2, and I thought to go into Season 2 before Disney inevitably probably pulls the whole thing to delete Miss Canero from the timeline. Well, maybe they won't do that, but after all, she said messed up stuff that was as bad as what James Gunn tweeted when he was younger, but that was when he tweeted it like 20 years ago, and then they found it, But in this case, she was saying stuff like currently. Comparing the Republicans to Holocaust victims, which doesn't make any sense. That's what they were doing. They're not. They get away with everything, including they get away with not convicting in a second trial with a impeachment trial. Of course, they get away with everything. It's odd that in this story, though, that this hyper-conservative lady didn't get that the whole thing is like a center-left allegory about the underdog and the downtrodden beating the system that is the high-rich oligarchy taking over the empire, so to speak, the whatever, and winning. Star Wars, that's what it's about. That's a cowboy western. It's the little guy makes good kind of thing. And these people that pretend they're the little guy when they're in fact oligarchs are clearly the villains in the story. So I don't know why this other person would completely misread that as some sort of a weird, bizarre fantasy about concentration camps, which she's never apparently seen any footage of, or believes it exists or something. They were real. They were bad, and the Nazis were evil. The Empire represents the Nazis. It did in the original Star Wars, and clearly even in the remakes, it's the Nazis. It's clearly what it's. They're space Nazis, and even their dark soldiers and all that stuff. Stormtroopers. They call them stormtroopers. Did you not know what you were getting into? Anyway, and it makes sense in the story in the second season, especially that they hit it home that it kind of was silly that the rebels did manage to become the New Republic, and it would. And one of the lines is, a vacuum creates more need for power to come in and fill the void, even if it's bad guys, even if it's mobs and things like that form, and definitely an allegory for, that kind of thing. I wouldn't say necessarily a current administration or anything. It's not really, but it is interesting that it's that the whole premise of the Star Wars this version is that the rebellion leading into the New Republic didn't form a republic so much as a broken oligarchy that couldn't keep its hold on the other planets. Even the Empire, which only lasted like 30 years, couldn't keep itself as an empire. Communications would be lost, that kind of thing. There were several sci-fi people that have discussed this in terms of a Type 2 civilization, such as that in Star Wars, a galactic republic, how that would work, a galactic empire. You'd have to have instantaneous communications, almost instantaneous transport. You'd have to have every planet under rule of billions of troops, which is unlikely. That galaxy, that whole idea of a Type 3, it works in science fiction because you can say, well, maybe they have trillions of people that can fly around and take over a whole planet, but it's a whole solar system. Even in sci-fi, it doesn't. So we have some interesting new characters. Apparently, the Mandalorian story was meant to, spoilers, introduce us to a character from Rebels and Clone Wars. Clone Wars, before Disney Clone Wars, and after Ashoka. She shows up as the Jedi. But earlier they have a marshal on a planet who back on Tatooine who has found Boba Fett's armor. We have a fight with them doing with them doing this fight on the planet, and then we get this other bad guy that shows up that has a similar voice to Boba Fett. Wondering how did he survive the Sarlacc pit, the sand vagina thing, that sandworm Dune, obviously sandworm and spice and all that. It's clearly Dune. Star Wars was very influenced by Dune. Spice Mines, that kind of thing. Very influenced by Frank Herbert. Clearly liked Frank Herbert. He clearly liked westerns, so that's cool. I think Lucas had a little bit to do with this season, a little bit. We're introduced to this guy that's clearly supposed to be later on, but it's really obvious that Boba Fett's going to show up. And he's going to want his armor back. So that's one thing that happens. But he makes a deal with the other guy. The kid is taken by the Moff Gideon, and they have to go rescue him. And although it's a really quick season, actually, it's eight episodes, ranging in length from 33 minutes to about 45. But I watched 5 of them in a day. Well, normally you can't do that if you're not but I did, and then I watched the other 3 today, and now I'll have to watch other Disney stuff. This playlist is going to be other Disney stuff as well. I will actually sit through some of the Disney films that just came out last year and see how I want to see the train wreck that truly is Artemis Fowl and Mulan. But I don't want to pay for it, so so yeah, well, indirectly paying for it, and I'll watch Soul, but I don't need to binge watch those things over like 7 hours. The whole idea of bringing it back, it's a Mandalorian thing, and there's a Mandalorian ladies. Mandalorian ladies are introduced during the episode that takes place on a sea barge with pirates. Which would have been, if Brian's story was still enacting, he should have been one of the pirates. He totally could have done that. Or one of the rebels, too. He'd be all over this thing. We don't know anybody other than Scott from years ago to get him in there. But he should be in part 3. So if you Disney guys want to hire us to be in Mandalorian part 3, season 3, we're here. Look us up. It's all good. Yeah, so... but yeah, I mean, they're gonna have to. They fired the ladies so they could hire us to be butt kicking characters. Yeah, that'll work. Anyway, so yeah, they had sea pirates. They had an Ice Planet episode with the ship and the little frog lady with the eggs, and the Yoda guy keeps eating her eggs. There was an Esto type, Krilly type character, although Krilly and Esto were more like lizards than frogs. Krilly was more of an alligator, although they do lay eggs. So. It's messed up that like most of them got eaten by the little Yoda guy. Ashoka does show up. Ashaka, and it's the lady from Clerks 2 playing her. Yeah, I think she's Rosario Dawson. I think she's John's age. Yeah, so she's it makes sense because Clone Wars is like 20 years earlier, so she'd be in her mid 40s, I would think at this point. So she would be older. Luke Skywalker would be Luke Skywalker. Yeah, you probably already know. Everyone's already seen this. It came out like in October. It's not like there's any spoilers, but there are. He does show up in the final episode in CGI form. And he looks uncanny, but oh well, he kind of did in the second one after the motorcycle accident. Skywalker looked kind of messed up. But yeah. Oops. But he looks a little uncanny. It just doesn't look quite right. As a CGI, like 20 years, 30 years older, 35 years older, Luke. He's just uncanny looking. Defeats the Dark Soldiers. That look like Cylon Transformers. Painted black. So yeah, there's like this weird, so yeah, I just named some stuff that happened. The episodes have a lot of dialogue. There are action episodes though. It's a Western. They have a siege on a fortress at one point, sort of a fortress thing. Kind of like, they've done several of those, Westerns. They have 2 sieges at 2 different forts. They have a siege on the ship in the final one, the mothership. the smaller Imperial light cruiser, which is kind of like about the size of the Enterprise. I guess it's much smaller than a Star Destroyer. And a Star Destroyer is roughly the size of the length of a board cube, roughly a couple miles to 3 miles long, depending on which Star Destroyer it is. The smaller ones were about the size of a Galaxy class Enterprise, but the larger ones were, a little bigger than a board cube. The Death Star was roughly, hundreds of miles long, so it would have been like, Death Star would have been way bigger. It does beg the question: how did that thing hyperdrive? Could it? They never addressed that. Hyperdrive just works in Star Wars. Just has to work because it's magic. Galactic empires have to work because it's magic. This was often a story debate during the day. How does the Galactic Empire actually work? Why can't the stormtroopers learn how to shoot? This doesn't make sense. They raid the fortress, and they bust a prisoner out of prison who was somebody famous, I think from Game of Thrones, and also I think he might have been in the Breaking Bad, and maybe there's a couple of people from the zombie series, The Walking Dead, in there. It's kind of funny. Of course, they've got the evil Moff guy who looks like a young version of. It isn't, though. It looks like a young version of Morgan Freeman a little bit, but it's not. It's not Morgan Freeman. It's Forrest Whitaker. Whitaker's the other guy, though. I keep getting all these names mixed up, and it's not because I can't tell. It's because they got him in makeup. They can't. That's what it is. Their makeup. You can't tell who they are. But yeah. We do get to see Mando out of his helmet, so they can get away with the breaking into the base scene. So he broke his helmet promise, and then he has his helmet later on too on the ship, but only among other Mandalorians, which means he's kind of defeated. And so in the end, they're all underdogs. Boba Fett gets to return to the palace, Jabba's ex-palace. The other guy's in charge, the guy with the funny head that wraps around. In the end credit sequence. Stay for the end credit sequence. So Book of Boba Fett 2021 now, which is an odd. So maybe they're done with the Mandalorian series at this point. I don't know. It just seems to wrap up, but it's 5 years after Return of the Jedi, so it's before the First Order, but the inklings of the First Order are out there. They've got the Darksaber now. They took it. The Darksaber's in it. That's from New Republic. In Jedi Order, Darksaber. So, which is kind of silly if you think about it. A magic sword that's dark. Instead of lightsaber, it's dark. Gee, how racist. It's just kind of silly. It's like, it's a magic sword, but it's not, but it is. But the wearer has to take it, win it in battle, which is both a Jedi thing, and what's that other movie where they did that? You have to win our weapon in battle, and then you possess the weapon. What was the name of that fantasy movie where they did that? It looked like Highlander a little bit, but it was something else. I can't remember what that is. There's a little bit of Highlander, but it wasn't Highlander. There's a lot of odd, quirky moments. There's Attack on the Base. So the second season is darker than the first one, in the sense that there aren't as many jokes, so to speak. There's the babies eating the eggs. That was kind of funny, but gross, dark. Dark comedy. I would say dark comedy, space adventure. Very, very similar to the Trans-Tech books and stories from the 90s. Very similar idea. It's a coincidence, though, because I just got around to watching 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, and I did not know about any of that. I'm not sure whether it will influence any of the later stories, but the later stories of Trans-Tech are down here, and they're already written. Here's one of them, and these were already written, so if I filmed them for the script, it isn't going to be even similar to Star Wars, because it's going to be not influenced by it, it won't be. Oh, and the next Trends Tech episode will take the crew to Area 51. So you can give that away. It's in the story. Area 51, they built another Robotech installation, and we have to go there and find it. That should be fun. Sort of a raid story as well. Sort of a Western raid story as well. But not in the slightest bit like the Star Wars, because this is from before. Okay, so we have... Yeah, Star Wars. So, yeah, it's weird that, and I know that was, I think, Ellis and Lavender, the two different people discussed. I think it was Ellis, death of the author. The idea that how does an author separated from their work, or actor or whatnot separated from their work. In this case, I don't think they can, because of the weird stuff that Canaro said on the internet. I don't think they can separate. I think even to an extent, James Gunn will probably get some flack later on when Suicide Squad, the remake, comes out. It's a reboot. There will be some flack to that. I don't think it's going to make as much money as the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 might, with them doing it. Even after that, I think it's going to be less. They're you say stupid stuff online and then you don't take responsibility for it. You start riots and sieges and stuff. You don't take responsibility for it. You encourage your followers to do bad shit and don't take responsibility for it. And then say, oh, you're canceled. They've been canceled and censored if they don't take responsibility for it. But if you say hateful things, that's not censorship. You've said something hateful, and that means that it's hate speech. And that's not protected by the freedom of speech. That's hate speech. If you accuse someone of being a communist or a Nazi, that's hate speech. And yeah, that's not protected. You get in trouble. So yeah, that's the way that works. Now, some of the racist people complaining, well, we're not there. Well, we're being canceled because we acted racist and offensive and we've acted all white supremacist. Durr. That's not cancellation either, because white supremacists are not protected either. If you are in the Klan, you are not protected from criticism. You're in the Klan. That's dumb. Just like you're in the Klan. It's like, why would anybody in 2021 be in the Klan anymore? That's stupid. So it's like you get what you get. It's not even karma. It's like you're just don't be a jackal. But yeah. So yeah, the Star Wars is center left. It always has been. Yeah, I wonder if usually Doomcock and Midnight's Edge was complaining about how Star Wars and Kathleen Kennedy and women's and all being sexist and stuff. I wonder what they're saying about. They're not saying anything about this lady. It looks like they're not mentioning this right-wing person because they're right-wing, because Nerdrotic as well are very right-wing, and they don't want to mention it. But it's like it's one of their guys that they don't want to mention. That's doing shit. So we're not going to mention that. No, we do not work for Disney and Marvel and stuff. We have no dog in the race. So until again, until after the pandemic. No, even then, they know what they did. It's like, yeah, I could still criticize, I could still I'll probably watch that new Milan movie pretty soon, and I could still criticize it, because it probably leads to criticism. I could still criticize Murderous Fowl. Nothing's going to happen. No, the Disney people will complain to you and you'll be censored. It's like, no, they will not. The main thing is that the Kal Kat channel does not do AdSense, and for its reviews does not make any money doing reviews. And especially with all the ads that have popped up now, they have these unkillable ads thanks to the Trump people leaving. They went out of office and they put in more advertisements. They were able to convince YouTube and Google to put ads everywhere, which essentially destroys the content creators that are actually making money. It eliminate because YouTube will their own ads, and then you won't watch your video. That's another story, another topic for later. Um, but yeah, it's like okay. Well, how does the Kal Kat show and all the other 3 or 4 shows stay afloat? Well, at least the Kal Kat show and Chimera and the other stay afloat because they're not doing AdSense, parody entertainment channels, and all of the we don't make any money on it. We make all of our videos out of pocket, and we don't make any money on it. We're content creators that do it because we like to do it. We like to do content, put it up. So yeah, there's no we like to do it, so we do it. Mandalorian season 2. It's weird that they brought back Boba Fett, but I thought for sure they would. I mean, it is called the Mandalorian. They do actually establish that. Okay, they do kind of explain that because they defeat the smaller Sarlacc creature. Okay, the Sarlacc apparently died. What happened? And when it died, apparently after, it died in fire, maybe it got indigestion. But this other large creature apparently went into its cave and took it over. So this other creature, the Leviathan, you gotta fight the Leviathan. So that means it just so happens that when Boba Fett was swallowed by the Sarlacc in Return of the Jedi, this other creature apparently killed it, I guess, afterward, and he got out. They kind of just brushed past it, said, nah, man. I liked how they did it, though, because they had the marshal guy and the other guy explain that, it never have a Sarlacc pit that's empty. So it must have died off screen. And this other creature that was almost as big took over the cave, and Boba escaped and assumed his form. But then later on they say, oh, he's a clone, and all the clone troopers have kind of a similar voice because Jango and Boba are clones. Boba was raised by Jango in the Clone Wars. He's a clone from the Clone Wars. So he might not be the Boba Fett. He might be a clone of him. That also could... So you can take both ways. You can say, like, oh, he escaped the Sarlacc pit somehow. Because he's being digested over 1,000 years. It's going to take him forever to get digested, so maybe he crawled out while he was being digested. Or maybe he was like, oh, it's 1,000 years being digested. Maybe he just crawled out. Because 1,000 years to do it, so stomach acid wasn't that strong, so he just crawled out. It's kind of messed up. Kind of looked like Jonah from Jonah and the Whale in the Bible. But maybe he just crawled out. So, okay. But then they explain later that he's a clone, but then if he's not really him, he's a clone of him. Then one of the other clones. Okay, that's a little weird, but I guess it kind of works. The Clone Wars are referenced in the cartoon as well, which is Osaka or Osaka? Ashaka? Yeah. Ashaka. Osaka. I keep saying that's a town in Japan. I think it's Azaka. Ashoka is what it is. Probably saying something horrible in African, not intentionally. Ashoka is a Star Wars-y name, but not intentionally. But they have her in orange face, which is... yeah. Shit. Ew. But in one of the Trends Tech episodes, Starscream did comment on human racism. He did make a comment. There's little things that I've thrown in during the Transformer thing. They mentioned the Capitol Siege, like, offhandedly. Like, this nation state had a Capitol Siege last month. And they let them get away with it. Well, that's kind of what happened, yeah. And there was also a line where Starscream was commenting on the Earth humans, and he goes, it doesn't make any sense. It's why humans delineate their races by color. It doesn't make any sense. They're all the same DNA. The same species, even. More so than Transformers. And yet, you seem to delineate between race and class for some reason. Why? They're all the same species. Stop that. And then one of them points out, well, what about Autobots and Decepticons? And he goes, well, that's ideology. That's different. So... Yes, you see the Autobots are... one of the Autobots points out that the ideology of the Autobots is to save and protect all sentient beings and whatever. Whereas the Decepticons want power and conquer everything. Kind of like the evil empire. They want to conquer everything, so they delineate they are prejudiced in their way by delineating by whether they can which side has more power than the other, which side controls whatever. That makes more sense to the Transformers because they're all the same species too, and they're like, what? They're all built in the same way, Cybertron DNA and whatever. So why would they have racism? They'd be like, half of them are completely multicolored. It's like that. Why would color mean anything? If Megatron was gray and Optimus Prime is red and blue, it's like they're not gonna be like, oh, you red creature, I don't like you because you're red. It's like, this doesn't make any sense. Why? It's like, or you're orange, or you're blue, or whatever. I like that the Star Wars story does include some blue and orange and different colored aliens. And didn't think anything of it. They're just there, green, because racism through color is really dumb. It's like, why would a species do that? Doesn't make sense. No, but different, but the funny thing is about them racist folks is like, I bet some of them got a little bit of African sarsaparilla in them if they did a DNA test. They'd be all like, ooh, that'd be funny, like the Grand Dragon of the Clan of like deepest Georgia. He gets a DNA test and he's like, oh shit, you mean I'm 1/5 black? Like most everybody here is probably 1/5 black. Down in Georgia. Because he probably would be. A little bit. Because they would be encountering that. I even encountered the reverse of that. Somebody didn't get the delineation. There was a blog, a church blog thing where they were talking about race. They're talking about it's pointing out the hypocrisy of white guys because of white guys saying that they're somehow superior because they're white. And because I said nobody's 100% anything. And an Eskimo lady commented on there. She said, "Well, I'm 100% Eskimo, or I'm 100%." No, she wasn't Eskimo. She was an Inukai. She was like an Inuit, but the other group, 100% Inuit. But that wasn't the point. The point was white people running around saying they're superior and they're not. That was the point. They're not superior. Nobody's superior above anybody else. They're not. So yeah. No, it's just. It's a class structure thing going on. Like the Transformers, it's a class structure thing. They're like, oh, the haves and the have-nots, the robots and the Autobots and the Decepticons, the underdog and the rebellion. Back to that, the class system thing that's going on. Tribalism is kind of what they keep saying, but what they mean when they say tribalism is classism. They don't mean tribalism. They mean classism. They mean this group has a bunch of stuff the other group wants to get a hold of. They mean classism. That's more classism than tribalism. And that's one of the main reasons that Earth has not been contacted directly by aliens. Even though I'm a science fiction guy, ooh, it'd be cool, aliens, Star Trek, whatever. I suspect that the galaxy is teeming with life out there. And that there is a galactic federation of sorts, an oligarchy of sorts out there. Not like Star Wars, but probably more like Star Trek. Just because that would be infeasible if they didn't have hyperdrive. They have hyperdrive. Absolutely. They can go wherever they want. But Earth is off limits. I go by that old Star Trek episode where they did that. But also TNG episode where they did that. But also old Twilight Zone episode, an Outer Limits episode that did something like that. It's the zoo hypothesis, in a sense. Humanity has not gone beyond its tribal, classist, and prejudiced instincts for war and depression and oppress the other guy because they're weaker than us. And misinterpreting meek shall inherit the earth and all that stuff. Misinterpreting survival of the fittest for that crowd. It's not survival of the strongest. It's not survival of the person with the most money. Not survival of the person with the most power. It's survival of the fittest. Which means that if the fittest creature can get in there and reproduce, that doesn't mean physically fit necessarily. It could mean the one that survives the fight. It's not martyrdom. It's not that. Because if you're martyred, you're not a good soldier. You're dead. You don't want to be dead. That's not martyrdom. You want to survive. You want to make it out of there and to fight again. The honorable way of the force. But yeah, if you want to get out of there. So yeah, it's not that. Yeah, so survival of the fittest. So that means that the nerdy guy, who if it was a battle or a rebellion or something, if the nerdy guy manages to survive and the two jock guys have killed each other, the nerdy guy mates. Because the two jock guys killed each other. He's the only one left. If he's the smartest one in the room, unlike how Trump says that. Now, when Trump said he's the smartest guy, he's not. No, he stole that from he stole that from a movie, okay? He was in Money Never Sleeps. He was in the sequel. Wall Street 1 and 2. Yeah, Wall Street. He stole that from Wall Street. De Niro. It's like you steal a lot of stuff from De Niro, but no, he's the one that said that in the movie. And in Scorsese in the movie, he was being ironic, but the conservatives don't get it. He's being ironic. They don't get irony at all. So that's why aliens wouldn't contact humans. I could discuss that later. It's just a Fermi paradox. I think there are alien creatures out there. They're watching us. And we're like a zoo of crazy primates. And they don't want to have anything to do with us. They're like, these humans are not ready. They're a century behind being ready. If we go there, they're going to act crazy and try to attack us. So we're not going there. Just leave Earth off limits. They think we're going to invade them and enter their bodies like aliens. Or they think that we're an evil empire. So we're not going there. Because it's ridiculous. So the aliens are just staying away. They're not contacting us because every time we're just about to get there, just about to do something cool, we screw it all up, and then they have to leave. I bet it's happened several times that they've almost made contact, and we screwed it up somehow, and they said, "I'll leave again." And they flew off in their spaceship. They were going to land, but then they said, I also maintained that even when I was younger, even when I was a kid, that aliens are going to contact the most reasonable people on the earth as well. They're not going to contact the elites. They're not going to say, "Take me to your leader," because have you seen the last leadership? The guy before this guy? They're not going to go. They're not going to land in the White House. They're not going to land in no. They're not going to go visit the president. Either president. They're not going to visit Congress. They're going to land in the middle of a cornfield somewhere. They're going to land in the middle of Middle America somewhere. Like land in Central Park or something and go like, "Oh, you by the park bench. We're making first contact with you." It's like they would probably make contact with the homeless in Central Park before they make contact with the government. It's kind of a scary thought. Some of those guys are a little bit out there. That's who they'll make contact with. They won't make contact with the upper echelon at all. That doesn't represent humanity. They would land in there. That explains all that cattle mutilation. It doesn't explain the cattle mutilation. That was animals attacking the cows. It was never aliens. Why would aliens do that? And it was never any rectal probes from the aliens. I wasn't any of that. But the Star Wars thing is like, yeah, they're gonna meet either the homeless or they're gonna meet children. Because children are innocent and stuff. They meet children. And land in like a kiddie baseball field in a school somewhere. And talk to the children. That's what they're gonna do. They're not gonna hang out with the adults. They're not. Aliens are coming, but it's not like Star Wars. It's more like Star Trek. And when they come, they will. It'll be not for us. It'll be for somebody else. But yeah, it'll be like, oh, we're gonna land over in like the Haight-Ashbury district in San Francisco and hang out with the people. What? They're gonna go land in like the middle of Cesar Chavez Park in San Jose. Go talk to the convention goers. Like, oh yes, because of course Mark's cards would say, well, they're space bunnies, and so their space bunnies are going to come down and be space bunnies and alligators. Space bunnies and alligators are going to come down and they want to mate. So, space bunny. She's space bunnies. Yeah. So there was Shaka is sort of a bunny, I guess, kind of, sort of hair, ears. Bunny. She's a bunny, yeah. She's a space bunny. An orange space bunny. She looks like a bunny Pokemon, a little bit. I'm sure this is what Lucas was thinking of, Pokemon. I'm sure that's what he was thinking. So she's like a Charizard, basically. She's a dragon bunny girl, lady. Bunny ears, but dragon horns, thing. Which makes sense, because... Totally makes sense because this Pokemon guy had autism and Asperger's. I also do. So but I'm not famous, so I didn't invent a generation of little space characters, the electric mouse and stuff like that. No, I didn't invent anything like that. That guy's probably a multi-billionaire. They won't go visit him. They probably won't. He's too rich. They'd be like, ah. They won't visit Elon Musk necessarily. They'll visit average Joe on the street. They won't visit, although they won't necessarily visit people out in the middle of Podunk somewhere, or space writers, or necessarily, or people like Whitley Strieber who are kind of nuts, or nutty people. They won't necessarily visit nutty people. They'll know. They'll probably be able to have an innate sense. Since they travel the galaxy, they probably would have not necessarily telepathy, but they'd just be able to tell how humans react, because they've been studying us for probably thousands of years. And it wouldn't be like War of the Worlds, where although that was a cool concept when you think about it, the Martians couldn't handle our diseases, so yeah, the Martians are dying off or whatever. Ooh, maybe the plague is from aliens. It isn't Transect, but that's because Transformers, because it's a science fiction. But no, the coronavirus is not from aliens. It's not from 5G. It's not that. It's not aliens. It was a virus from monkeys and bats in China, spread all over the country. But it wasn't aliens. Oh no, it definitely was not aliens. They would come and they would have medical science far beyond us. So they would not really want any. They wouldn't get sick from our diseases. They would be immediately inoculated. Unlike in War of the Worlds, they'd be like, oh yeah, Earth. Here's our here. Go to our sick bay. They'd go to the sick bay, and they'd be like, okay, we have a list of all of the Earth germs that you can catch down there. It's hypo spray and go down, beam down to the planet. You know. Yeah. So. Hey, hypospray. So yeah, as to my talk on aliens, just for fun. I think I've mentioned this before in some ways. But yeah, we have not reached the level of Cat 1 civilization, and that's unfortunate. But I've also maintained that we are neighbors to a Cat 1 civilization. Yes, we are neighbors to them. The Proxima and Alpha Centauri system is inhabited by a similar species to us. Yeah. And they're right there. And they've been listening to our stuff for 60 years or more. Well, our communications and stuff. And they're like, oh, yeah, you humans, we're watching you, but no, you're not ready. You seem to think we're going to rectal probe you guys. And you're just, no, we're not going to do that. No, we don't do things like that. We don't put parasites in you or anything and eat like that either. We don't drink your blood. We don't want your gold, and we didn't enslave you. Because why would we want your gold? We have spaceships. Yeah, they'd be like that. Yeah, if you could travel the stars in spaceships, that hyperspace and whatever, get there instantaneously, you don't have need to mine anything. You didn't make it on the ship. It's like 3D printer. There it is. We need gold credits on it. The Earth is still using money. There, it's exactly a clone of money, or whatever we need. Oh, we need this part. There it is. It's like that. They'll have that stuff. They're not quite a Cat 2 civilization. And there's different categories of civilization. It's Kardashev. The Karda, that was a coincidence. They were cardboard robots. And Kardashev with a K, Karda. That was a coincidence. When I was 16, I did not know there was a Kardashev tale when I was 16. But it fits, so hey, why not? I had no idea. But yeah, civilization. Well, that goes with like, okay, you have type 1, that's your planet control the resources of your planet. And solar system, ergo solar system. Category 2 is galaxy. Several solar systems or part of the galaxy. I think that they should put different levels of that, though, because that's a big jump from one planet to galaxy. I would say like there's a 1 and 1A where you're part of the galaxy, where that would be the Federation in Star Trek. Whereas in Star Wars, Cat 2 civilization, the whole galaxy. Apparently a small galaxy. It's not a big one. A Magellanic Cloud or something. Because jumping all the way to a whole galaxy, because back when they thought of early science fiction, they're all galaxy and solar system. It's almost the same thing. It's interchangeable. Star and planet is almost interchangeable. That's because at least in the Japanese cartoon shows that referenced that, I believe it was one of the Gamma Ray episodes, they just didn't have a word between star and planet. And they just didn't check it. So they kept saying, oh, another star. And they meant planet. Because planetismia means wanderer. Wandering star. So they just translated wandering star and star. Yeah. that's why that happened. But yeah, planets are not stars. Planets orbit stars most of the time. But there is a star there is a reverse that they found out there. That was a weird rogue planet thing going the other way around. But it turned out it was a small star. It was like so it was still a star. Turns out. Yeah. And when they accidentally dumped the Alpha Centaurian probe ship, accidentally dumped some hydrocarbon atoms onto Venus, figuring out no one will notice. They were just dumping their fuel on there and detect them. So, yeah, they're out there, just screwing around in the solar system right now. Want to go see them? Anyway, so yeah. Because they're a lot like us. They are. I wonder if they're space bunnies or space alligators. But no, they're humanoid. Because Star Trek. They're sort of humanoid. But I suspect that when we finally meet aliens, the first thing we'll have, it won't be a galactic empire trying to subjugate us like in Star Wars. It would be more like, Galactic Federation oligarchy that has its own issues and its own beliefs and its own weird politics and stuff that we don't even know what it's about. They have a Plutarchian, squid creature, blah, 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 or god dead or whatever. Oh, I did like in the episode they visited the planet Shakari to find the god thing on the planet. Have the Yoda thing activate the Shakari. It was the same kind of... Well, it wasn't the same, but it looked similar. So, yeah, I was joking about the aliens coming to Earth and having, I think that it won't be as much like Carl Sagan's Contact as it would be like almost a joke to them if they actually make contact. It'll be like, okay, we're gonna send. It'll be more like the Space-Time Eye Waymarker saga than it will be like. Canary Space or Space Vanguards, Canary, or Distant Destinies and Starcrackers. It'll be more like that because they'll be like, we're gonna contact humanity on their internet thing as they reach the event of the internet thing, and they'll be like, okay, we're gonna send the humans like a radio burst, but it's gonna be like a radio burst of stuff that they understand. What is the most thing that's all over the internet? Spam and commercials and ads. So these weird spam ads will show up everywhere, like all over the earth. And they'll be like, what are these spam ads? It's just more spam, and it just keeps coming and coming and coming, and it has data in it, and it's spam, and some of it will be porn, some of it will be Rule 34, because they won't get it. But it'll be weird Rule 34. It'll be like okay, squid creatures? Bunny creatures? What? It's weird. Like bug-eyed things, like nature shows or something. What are we watching? And then the scientists and the NASA will be like, yeah, we scanned these weird signals we keep getting, and they're coming from outer space. They're not from Earth. Oh, and then it'll be like, what? It'll be like contact with Carl Sagan. It'll be like that. And it'll be like, oh, we're getting it's first contact. It's aliens. They're beaming back our signals from space. And he's like, oh, aliens? Really? They're very similar to us. They've been watching our stuff for years, for 80 years, and it's gonna it's gonna be weird at first because they're not gonna know what to send, so they'll just send everything. It won't be to the elites. They'll be left out. Meek will inherit the earth. It will be like, this message is not for the current president of the United States, Chelsea Clinton, or whatever. Chelsea Clinton, or whoever. Let's see, who is that? This is not for President. What's that girl's name? The one that won the Time magazine. It's not for Swedish President Goddardam or whatever her name is. It's for like the rando dudes, and like, this broadcast is going directly to mouthpieces. Send it over there. Talk to Adam. Awesome. Send it to him first. Yeah, I want to talk to him first. It'd be totally this unknown guy that, like, what are they talking to? What are they talking to me? But yeah. It's a random dude. They're just gonna talk. Hi, aliens. I have no idea what they're talking to me. There'll be like a flood of trucks and things coming over. That's when I hang out with this guy. They'll hang out with convention goers. They'll hang out with cosplayers. They'll hang out with the weird and downtrodden and strange, because it's more like them. They'll show up at sci-fi conventions dressed in alien costumes and be taken for other convention goers. But it'll be a dead giveaway when like weird stuff starts to happen. It's like Gray will walk by and be like, oh, that's a great costume he's on. It's just not a costume. Yeah. He like floats away like what? You have seen my helmet on? No. I'm a Mandalorian. Well, actually, the mask thing is kind of fun because it's COVID. All year. Last year and some of this year. So, yeah, masks, they have to wear the mask. So, yeah, that's my thing on aliens. I rambled on about aliens, but I thought that would be appropriate for Star Wars. Why not? Because it's probably, with the weird little creatures and puppets, it's probably more like that than it would be Star Trek in that sense. There would be more diversity among the aliens. It would be delineated by race or class or whatever, party affiliation. They wouldn't know anything about that. They would have their own party affiliation. They would have their own thing. Maybe a weird quasi-religious state, like in Canary Space. Or maybe it would have no quasi-religious state. Maybe they would have no concept of that. But I think that they probably do have a concept of religion, though, because they're probably advanced. They might have science really connected. Anyway, so yeah. Anyway, that's